Okay, so we're going to start there by looking at 2019 paper 1 question 3, and you can see here this is a functions question and we've got graphing functions. Okay, so in order to be able to graph these functions you need to be able to put them into your calculator, so you need to know how to put these into the calculator. So we'll start off by reading the question. So the function is defined as f of x is equal to negative x cubed plus 4x squared plus x minus 2, where x is an element of or, so that just means that x is a real number, right? So, part A, part 1. Complete the table below for the values of x in the domain -1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4, and hence draw the graph of the function f of x in the domain -1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4, and x is an element of or. Okay? So basically what they're saying there is they want you to graph that function with values, inputs, between -1 and 4. So that's all this means here. It just means inputs between -1 and +4. So you could work this out. You could work this out by subbing in -1 in for x and getting a corresponding output. Subbing in 0 for x and getting a corresponding output, which in this case would be -2, because all of this would turn into 0 and you'd be left with -2. You could put in a value for 1 and so on, but to be honest with you, it's quicker just to do it with the calculator. So I'm just going to show you how we'll do that. So turn on your calculator, press the on button. Okay, press menu. Okay. And from there we go across the table. So go across the table, and you can see there to go across the table you just go across 2, 1, 2, or mode 3 you could say. Press equals, and then it asks you for f of x. So when it asks you for f of x, what you need to do is you need to type in the function there for f of x. So the function for f of x is going to be negative, so we put in our negative. You've got x cubed, so in order to get x cubed you need to get the x value here. So you can see the x there is in red. So to get that red x, what you need to do is you need to press alpha first and then press the bracket. Okay, that needs to be cubed, so we'll press this button here and then we'll press 3. We need to add 4x squared, so I'm going to come down there, so press out, press 4 plus, press 4, and again we're going alpha x. Okay, that needs to be squared, so I can press the squared button, and I need to add to that x, so plus alpha x, and I need to subtract 2, so -2. Okay, so you can see there that I've input the function. So once the function is in, I'm happy that's correct, which it is. I'll press equals. Okay, it then asks you for g of x, right? That's if you have a second function. We don't have a second function, we only have one in this case. So in this case, I can ignore that and just press equals. Okay, it then asks you what you're starting at. And you know what you're starting at because it tells you. So what we're starting at there is -1, because the first value that we have is -1. Okay, and we can see that there. So we're going to put in -1. So -1. We're going to end there. So we'll press equals to get on to end. We're going to end there at 4. Okay, so we'll change that to 4. And step. What step means is how much you're going up by each time. So how much your input's gone up by. And I can see that the inputs there are going up each time by 1. Okay, so they're going up each time by 1. So I put 1 in and press equals. And that gives me my answers there. So I can see -1 maps onto 2. 0 maps onto -2. 1 maps onto 2. 2 maps onto 8. And if you go down there, you can see what the next one is. 3 maps onto 10. And 4 maps onto 2. Okay, so I'm just going to fill those values in. Okay, so like I said, -1 mapped on to, let's see there, -1 mapped on to 2, so I'm going to put 2 in. Okay, 0 mapped onto -2. 1 mapped onto +2, 2 mapped onto 8, 3 mapped onto 10, so I know I'm correct because that's given to us. And 4 mapped onto 2. And you can check all that with your calculator. Okay, the next part there was to graph it, right? So -1 and 2, so -1 and 2. So -1 and 2 is going to be here. Okay. -1 and 2. 0 and -2 is going to be here. 1 and 2 is going to be here. 2 and 8 is going to be here. And 3 and 10 is going to be here. And 4 and 2 is going to be here. Okay, so we can see that shape there. We've been asked to graph it, so we're just going to graph that there now. And we're going to go from here, down to here, up to here, and up to there. And across here, and down to here. And if you get that correct so far in the exam that year, that much of the question was worth 15 marks. So if you got all that correct, you would have got 15 marks in the 2019 exam. That brings us on to part 2. So in part 2, it asks us to estimate the roots of f of x. Okay, so estimate the roots. So we know that the roots are where it cuts the x-axis. So the roots are where it cuts the x-axis. So they're the roots. Okay. So it cuts the x-axis there and there. And I'm going to estimate that those 2 points are roughly, approximately, you could say, minus 0.7 and plus 0.7. Okay. So the roots would be approximately, and we use those squiggly equal signs as approximately, minus 0.7 and plus 0.7. And that again would have got you another 5 marks. So far we're up to 20 marks on that question. So part B asks us find the value of x for which f double dash of x is equal to 0. So f double dash of x is the second derivative of x. So what they want us to do is get the second derivative of x. Okay. So what we need to do there is we need to fill in what f of x was. So we know from part A of this question that f of x is equal to negative x to the power, or x cubed I should say, plus 4x squared plus x minus 2. So this is a calculus question, right? So this is just testing to see if we're able to differentiate. So if that's f of x, then f dash of x will be equal to, this 3 here will come down in front, and I'll say negative 3 times x, and I'll reduce this power by 1, and that will turn into 2. So negative 3x squared. Similarly, this 2 will come down in front, and I'll have 2 times 4, which is 8. So I'll have 8x, and this will be reduced by 1, so it'll be 8x. Okay, I could say it's the power of 1, but I tend not to say it's the power of 1 just because, just don't do it. Okay, so the next one there, if this was x to the power of 1, okay, the 1 will come down in front, so I'll have plus 1, and the x will be to the power of 0, and anything to the power of 0 turns into 1. So this will just turn into plus 1. And any time I differentiate a constant, it just turns into 0, so I'll be left with nothing there. So that'll be my first derivative. If I want the second derivative, I have to differentiate it again. So the 2 comes down in front, and 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. The x is still x, and it was to the power of 2. I need to reduce that power by 1, so it'll just be to the power of 1. but again, I tend not to put in that 1. Okay, plus 8x. So if I'm going to differentiate this 8x, that's the same as saying x to the power of 1. So if the 1 comes down, it'll be 1 times 8, which is 8, and it'll be x to the power of 0. But anything to the power of 0 just turns into 1. So it'll be 8 times 1, so I'll have 8. And again, there, my constant this time will just turn into 0. Okay? So the question said to find f double dash of x and to leave it equal 0. Okay? And then find the value for x. So that's what I'll do. I'll leave this equal to 0. Negative 6x plus 8. If I want to find the value for x, I need to get all the x's by themselves. So I'm going to bring that negative 6x over to the right-hand side, and I'll have 6x is equal to 8. And to find out what x is, I divide both sides by 6. So 8 over 6. And 8 divided by 6 will simplify down to 4 over 3. Okay? And if I'd found that in the 2019 paper, I would have got 5 marks for that. Okay, so very straightforward differentiation question there, right?